Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course. I'm always happy to talk about all sorts of stuff. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you considering me.
Yeah. I just want to kind of give our audience a little bit of history to what happened in our neighborhood, what happened to your family, and what kind of brought us together. So please correct me if I, mix up any dates or information. But on, I believe it was July 21st, 2018.
Correct.
I was home in my apartment, and my boyfriend was actually headed to the grocery store. And all of a sudden, our neighborhood was like shaking with helicopters and police cars going, 100 miles an hour down next to an elementary school towards our local Trader Joe's. And there was, reports of a police chase, and the suspect crashed his car right by the grocery store, and he ran into the store, and the police shot into a Trader Joe's on a Saturday afternoon. It was a busy store, and I'm shaking and angry that we're having to say this, but Albert's beautiful, incredible sister, who is manager there, Mely, she was murdered by the LAPD. Sorry, I didn't expect to get emotional. I was, at the time, I didn't know Albert, and I was just so devastated for you. And excuse me. So cut to about, a year and a half, 2 years later. My brilliant brother Michael is, making waves on the left and doing his great work. And in classic younger sibling form, I'm thinking about how I can get involved, but not be in his shadow, or do something, separate. And I started becoming aware of this group. I started seeing these T-shirts, sorry, we're gonna get flagged. Fuck the Olympics is what they say. And, it's no Olympics
Great
LA.
shirts.
Yeah, great shirts. Yeah, okay, thank you. And I I start, seeing this group online, and they're just like, they've, really catchy, fun, honestly really engaging social media, and it's all of a sudden I'm a total chump. I knew that, things maybe weren't great for the athletes, but I had no idea about the scale of the impact that the Olympics had on cities. And so I reached out, and I said, I want to get involved, but most importantly, I want one of these, dope T-shirts. And, I was basically led to Albert's literal front door. And we start just having a conversation about, what got us into activism. I talked about, my background. And then, Albert told me that he had lost a family member, had been murdered by the LAPD. And I kind of had a feeling, because you have a bit of a resemblance to your sister. And I wondered. And you told me that Mely was your sister, and you were on my mind pretty much from that day forth. I had some friends that were hostages during that day in the store, and it's a few blocks from where I live, so it's just something that's weighed heavily on me. And I'm almost done to where our story, the last kind of chapter of Albert and I's story together. But on Sunday, July 19th of this year, Albert, in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of this uprising, organized this beautiful march for Mely. Hundreds of, if not, I don't know, it was a huge, huge turnout. Everyone was holding sunflowers, and our community came together, and it was really wonderful. And Albert spoke, his niece spoke, his brother spoke, your father, Mely's father, spoke. And after the protests, I just felt this anxiety. Like, I really wanted to speak with Michael. I'd seen Albert, and I just felt so overwhelmed by the idea of losing a sibling. It's just so intense. And I called Michael, and we ended up speaking for an hour and a half on FaceTime, because, I'd been at this march and had all his emotions come up. And then, we said goodnight, and less than 12 hours later, in that ballpark, Michael had passed. So, Albert, you've been on my mind. I know this was quite the introduction, and we haven't even touched on all the amazing work you've been doing on the ground. We'll get there. But first, I just wanted to just kind of have a conversation about, our wonderful siblings and their impacts on us as we continue to live and try and live up to honoring their memories. So, so do you, Albert.
Well, I mean, I first want to say, obviously, like, and I sort of reached out to you before this interview just to say how awful it is that you lost Michael, and it's unfortunate that we know the pain that the other person's going through, and to see you, I can see myself in you, and how it's only been a little over a month, and I know that this is the worst time. It's the time of the shock. It's the time of trying to adjust to everyday life, and so to see you doing this, and even just so quickly trying to continue his legacy and what he was about, and like keep this work going, I think is incredible. So I just want to commend you on that, because myself, after a month after Mely was killed, I was a complete mess, and so I don't know that I would have been able to keep it together. So just want to say that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a little over 2 years, and I took a long time to go to therapy and to try to get my mind right, and I knew that I wanted to get involved somehow. Funny enough, I had seen these No Olympics posters like a month after Mely was killed, and they were these missing posters, because our mayor Eric Garcetti over here is
We love him.
right, yeah, great guy. He was always going out of town during those days. He was always
Sure.
like, I think 1 out of every 3 days he was somewhere else, and the rumor was that he was trying to run for president, so he was trying to build support, and whatever the case was, he missed Mely's funeral, and he was gone for most of that week. Between he was there the night of the shooting, went away for a few days after, and he missed Mely's funeral, and so that always kind of upset me, and it really upset my father. And so I remember seeing these missing posters, and it said No Olympics LA, and I just remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about, and just seeing that, like, that was my first peek into the activist world, into this world of organizing and all that sort of stuff. And so then when I was finally able to start to come out and do stuff, I was like, oh, I will go see what those No Olympics people are all about, because I mean, I definitely had some weird feelings about the Olympics, but I mean, also, and I've told the two co-chairs, Anne and Johnny, that like I had to go check it out because they messaged around Mely's murder, and I felt like
Right.
so grateful to that. And it
So
was,
you felt like the government, Eric Garcet's missing, and the people that stepped up were these local organizers. Albert, if it's cool, because we talk a lot on this show about police brutality, and we talk a lot about the victims of these murders and the system. But if you're comfortable and you'll go here with me, do you mind just kind of going back to what happens when a family member is murdered by a police department? What does that look like? What did anyone reach out to you? Was there any effort, any sort of apology? What happens after you lose a family to police brutality and violence in America?
yeah, I mean, I'll speak from, obviously my own experience, and I was living in Minneapolis at the time, and my dad was here. So when he told me that when I got the word that Mely had been killed, that she was dead, he knew it was the cops, and everyone there knew it was the cops. Obviously, the police knew, the people inside that store knew, and even that night, you were seeing there was some confusion about who fired the fatal shot. Whose bullet was it? Even though the police knew it was their shot, their bullet, and they went ahead and told the LA Times that it was the suspect who was running away from them. The reason they shot into the store is that
Right.
it was one of his bullets. And
Right.
so what ended up happening was we were in touch with Chief Moore, but the only reason we were in touch with him is because he spoke to my father right after Mely was killed, offered apologies, all that sort of stuff. But we were trying to go and see Mely's body because we hadn't seen it yet. And so we had to call. We were literally on the phone with Eric Garcetti and Chief Moore and a bunch of people from LAPD and the coroner's office trying to see Mely's body, and they were not letting us. And I remember speaking to Chief Moore on the phone, and he said, we're going to do everything we can to get you whatever information you need. You'll be able to see your sister soon, but maybe not today. And we just said, this isn't good enough. We don't, they were basically trying to get us out of their way. They were trying to already do the damage control because they knew at some point they were going to have to admit that it was one of their bullets. So they were trying to do whatever they could to kind of get us out of their way. And so what ended up happening is we finally got through to someone who like let us see Mely. But the moment that I got home the next day, we decided that we were going to sue the LAPD, that we're going to sue the city because we knew that it was their bullet. And we knew that like, even if they had come out and said it was us, we're sorry, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like what they did was a crime, and they committed a terrible act that killed my sister. But then seeing that they were trying to already remove the culpability from themselves and trying to spin it and tell the paper of record in the city that it was someone else's bullet, we knew that, I mean, literally the 2 days later, that Monday, we went to a family friend who is a lawyer, and we said, hey, we're going to sue the city. This is what happened. Connect us with people who you think are going to be helpful. And so, and then as soon as we got lawyers, every bit of communication was done through our lawyers in the LAPD. And that's when they that was the end of any sort of goodwill or any of them reaching out. They knew that we were coming.
It was done.
Yeah, and we didn't file for 4 months, but they knew that was coming down the pipeline at some point.
So that was 2 years ago. Where does that stand now? Are you able to speak about that? It's okay if you don't want to go there.
No, that's fine. We filed in November of 2018. We had our first, preliminary hearing in March of 2019. We've had a few since then. We're finally around the 1 year mark. We're able to get Mely's autopsy released to us because what they did too was put a security hold on Mely's autopsy. And what they also did was run a toxicology test on Mely, the victim of a murder.
Disgusting.
The victim, she was not running from police. She was not in police custody. She wasn't trying to do a suicide by cop, whatever these people try to say. She was at work and thought what she heard was a car accident and went to help someone. So they went ahead and did that because the way that I think about it is that if they found anything, whether Mely was smoking weed or had cough syrup, that
would have been the narrative.
Right.
Even if you're shot at work and everyone in the neighborhood adores you and you're this beacon of light, to the amount of people that have come forth. Yeah, that would become the story.
Yeah, and so we finally kept fighting and we have some good lawyers. And so finally at a certain point it was kind of like, we're just going to keep doing discovery. We're going to take depositions because we found out that there was a videotape that was inside the Trader Joe's that shows what happened. And when we looked at that videotape, it actually was missing 5 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah. And so right now we're in the midst of taking depositions from people from Trader Joe's and LAPD, trying to figure out the chain of custody, because what happened was LAPD took the original SIM card from Trader Joe's, made a copy, gave that copy to Trader Joe's, then Trader Joe's gave that to us. And so we've got like a copy of a copy that has 5 seconds missing. And I haven't seen the video because it does show Mely get shot, but our lawyers tell us that it gets a little choppy and weird, and so it's definitely been tampered with. And
Isn't it funny how like the in the movie version of what this hellish reality, it's like so predictable. Mm-hmm. It's like
they're a bunch of
clowns. The writing is so bad.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, they do all this dumb stuff. They're bumbling, they're idiots, they're cowards, and all that, but they also just get away with this stuff. As bad,
they don't have to be good because it's just scot-free no matter what.
Right, because of everything from qualified immunity to whatever. And so, so right now I'm not sure if it's going to hold to this, but we were supposed to start our trial in March of 2021. So almost 3 years after Mely was killed is when our trial will start. Because of COVID, we think it's probably going to get pushed back. But and that's why, that was a reason why I decided to get involved, because I knew that what I could do on the streets and getting into activism and organizing was going to be, have a way more immediate response than waiting to sit in a courtroom and see what the decision was. At this point, obviously I want to win the trial and I want it to go, but I just it doesn't really, it's not as important to me anymore, because I know that I can circumvent stuff and go after the LAPD and their union and their supporters and whoever else in a way more direct way through social media and protests and all that stuff.
Absolutely. So do you mind, do you mind me sharing that what happened in your neighborhood when you left LA was you lived a few blocks over from where George Floyd was murdered?
Correct.
So, this is becoming, Albert, you're a citizen in this country, and within your life, you've already, lived down the street from a gruesome police murder and also a family member's murdered by the police. This is becoming just the scale of the harm of this is consuming us, and it's even people who think there may be can be spared from it, the group that is safe, I think, is becoming a smaller and smaller margin, honestly. So anyways, I'm going on a tangent. I'm just when you shared with me that had happened in your neighborhood, once you had left LA, and then that's just it's worth saying, because I think personal stories really drive home the reality of what's happening day to day in America.